Good day, grade 12s. Welcome yet to another segment. So in this lesson, I just want to focus on political situations and unforeseen occurrences of international significance. Now, there is some concepts that I want us to discuss, namely political situations, unforeseen occurrences, and giving examples when it comes to these two. So now one will ask what a political situation is. A political situation is an event that is linked to the political circumstances within a country or a region. I'm talking about a civil war or terrorism. So I'll make an example of one African country that is having civil unrest. For instance, the Central Republic is still having issues when it comes to politics. You will find that the rebels are still fighting the government. Let's talk about Somalia as well. You will find that the rebels are still fighting the government. There is always people dying all over and so on and so on. People are being abducted and so on and so on. So those are the things that we say they are related to or they are linked to political situations in countries or in regions. Unforeseen occurrences, what are they? Unforeseen occurrences are events that happen without any warning. For example, earthquakes and natural disasters. When I'm talking natural disasters, I'm talking about, for instance, floods, tsunamis, and your earthquakes. They don't give us a warning. Earthquakes just strike. They don't give you a warning to say tomorrow we are going to be hit by an earthquake. It just happens from nowhere. So they are unforeseen. No one can tell what time, where these are going to strike. Examples of recent political situations, let me go back to political situations. A tourist perception of political instability and safety in a country will affect their decision about whether or not to travel to that particular country. So now there are few examples of political situations that I want us to unpack. Number one, civil war. Now you find that there is other countries that still have civil war to date. Now a civil war is a war between opposing groups of citizens of the same country. Now civil wars have recently occurred, in Libya, we are aware of that, Somalia, Kenya, Egypt. Those are few African countries where civil wars have occurred or they are still active. So now you find that tourists are not attracted to those areas that have civil war. They are actually scared to visit because they worry about their safety. So no one would want to go to a place where they will be, scared to even go to attractions or scared to move into certain types of accommodation establishments or to even board a bus because they are afraid something might happen to them. Okay, that's one example of a political situation, civil war. Terrorism is one of them. Now, terrorism is the use of violent acts to achieve a political goal. Now, we've seen these happening in a lot of countries. One of the most significant terrorist attacks in recent years was actually the September 11th, 2011 attacks on the World Trade Center in New York. This one is the most famous one. Everybody knows what happened there. We even have a documentary on how that happened and the reason behind it happening. They call it the September 11th. So now these actually depress the tourism industry because now there is going to be, a scare. There is going to be less income being injected in the economy, less income in the tourism businesses because fewer or no tourists would want to go to places where such, activities take place. And the next one is general unrest. Unrest is an unnecessary or troubled condition whereby you find, for instance, countries like Zimbabwe, they had what we call general unrest. So people are always, at loggerheads with the government. and it has no stop. It continues like that, and that brings economic instability and it brings down the economy itself. So most tourists would not want to visit to areas where there is general unrest, where there is economic instability. They don't know if for instance, you've got so much of dollars, are they going to be enough for your duration of stay? Or probably when you are there in that particular country like Zimbabwe, the economy is just going to change abruptly. It will go down, or the currency is going to change while you are there. So that scares tourists. They do not want situations that make them uncomfortable, situations that, you know, bring scare to them. So moving on, other examples on unforeseen occurrences include the tsunamis. Now, a tsunami is a series of very large ocean waves caused by an underwater earthquake or volcano. So when that happens, that earthquake is going to what? Shake up the waters. That volcano is going to erupt, and when it does erupt, it's going to disrupt, or it's going to destroy infrastructure, buildings, attractions, airports, coastlines, and beaches as well. And the next one that I want to move on to as an example of an unforeseen occurrence is earthquakes. We have these earthquakes happening, and some of them are very violent, some of them are, you know, they are minor. But the bottom line is there is a bit of disruption when those earthquakes occur. Not even a bit, because sometimes some areas are affected massively. There is infrastructural destruction as well. Now, if there is infrastructural disruptions, it means now that the tourists will not be able to visit. Those who will visit, they will visit in smaller numbers. Now, that is not good for tourism, because the main aim of having this tourism industry is to boost the South African economy. So now, if we have all of these happening, it means now the number of tourists that are going to be visiting is going to be less, and there is going to be less income coming through. The next one is natural disasters. Now, natural disasters, this is when we talk about events caused by the force of nature, such as tornadoes. Some of you are familiar with tornadoes, and can cause great destruction. You will find that infrastructure is blown away, everything is disturbed, and that is a scare to tourists. Moving on to global recession, that's another thing. A global recession is a period of general economic decline. So now when the economy goes down, there is a lot of things that go wrong. Now, no one would want to go and invest in a country that's got economic instability. No one would want to visit a country where the economy is not stable. They don't know whether their needs and wants will be met. So that is definitely a push factor when it comes to attraction of tourists. Let's talk about diseases. Now, there is quite a number of diseases that are of concern, and they scare tourists. For instance, let's talk about malaria, yellow fever, flu, that is swine flu. In this day and age, we are talking COVID-19. So you will find that there is, pandemics that will strike in certain years, and in those years, economies are affected. So now, as long as there is these diseases in some of the countries or worldwide, you will find that tourism industries, they suffer. The tourism industry is going to suffer immensely, because people will not be able to board flights. People will not be able to go to their favorite attractions. People will not even be able to, get flights to go to other nations because of these diseases. Let me talk about the COVID-19. Now, you look at the South African situation. The tourism industry is depressed. The tourism industry is not generating much, because now international travel, as I speak today, has been banned. So you will find that there is no money on a daily basis that is being injected in the tourism industry. So now, as we know that the tourism industry employs a large number of people, so now those large number of people are going to suffer as well, because they face a situation whereby they have to be retrenched. They need to go home and sit because now there is no jobs. So those are the effects that come with diseases and so on and so on. So even other countries that are affected maybe by yellow fever, they are unattractive for tourists. So people will be worried and they will be stressed when they think of, there is my favorite destination, but now there is yellow fever that side. How then am I guaranteed of my safety? So that is of concern to the tourists, and that is of concern to the tourism industry and the economy as a whole. Next is the accidents. Let me focus on accidents. Now, you find that transport accidents can have a negative impact on tourist numbers as they affect the safety image of a destination. Say here in Gauteng, there is a whole lot of accidents that happen. So now you find that people will be asking themselves, what is it that the tourism industry is not doing right? What is it that the Gauteng province is not doing right when it comes to transport safety in these different types or different modes of transport? Are rules and regulations when it comes to transport not adhered to? Do these people who are transporting tourists, do they even have licenses? Are they qualified to transport tourists? So tourists get to question all these things. So now if you find that a certain province is experiencing problems with such, that actually decreases the number of tourists in that particular region, and now the tourism businesses in that area are going to suffer because they are not going to generate as much income as they would want to. So that is all that I wanted to clarify. Those are the few concepts that you need to make sure that you understand. Now, there is an impact of political situations and these unforeseen occurrences on tourism, let me say international tourism, and the economy of the affected country. So you find that the impact of reduced tourism in a country's economy, it can actually destroy a lot of things. It may lead to an increase in unemployment, homelessness, where people now cannot afford to pay rent, deflation, crime, and other socio-economic problems. For example, travelers who have already booked, they will have to cancel their flights. If you already booked to come to South Africa, you find that there is these situations, and then now you have to cancel your trip. So those are the effects.
We need to learn to live with the COVID virus, the new normal, at least for the next few months. And we have just what you need to make sure you never miss a single school lesson. And it's absolutely free, mahala! High quality, powerful, animated lessons for all your subjects. So don't spend a cent until you have tried iWhiz. It's everything you need. All video lessons, textbooks, workbooks, exam prep. We want you to ace 2021.